So many people have heard of the idea or technique of visualization, but there are so few who actually understand how powerful this technique truly is, and there are even fewer who understand how to do it in a way that's actually going to change the results in your life. You see, visualizing or mental imaging is actually an ancient technique. This is not new age or something that just came about in the last few decades. You can find reference to this kind of practice in many ancient texts, the Bible, for example, and ancient Egypt, and so much more. When you learn how to control your visualizations and use them with intention, it is like having a paintbrush and an empty canvas in which you can create your life with. As Neville Goddard said, all you can possibly need or desire is already yours. Call your desires into being by imagining and feeling your wish fulfilled. And Goddard also said, through your ability to think and feel, you have dominion over all creation. See, the fact of the matter is you are actually visualizing all day long, whether you are aware of it or not. You are thinking almost all of the time. And we don't think typically in words or things of that nature. We usually are thinking in visualization, in images. Yet if you are not intentionally thinking and imaging, then what do you think you are creating in your life? Most likely less than ideal conditions. In fact, if you want to know what you've been visualizing consistently up until this point, look out at your life and the results you've been getting, and it will tell you. You have been holding in your mind the equivalent of what you are now seeing in your outside world. Now don't worry if what you're seeing is less than desirable or what you wanted, or even if you want to take things to the next level. Because in this video, we're not only going to dive deeper into visualization and the power it contains, but I'm also going to give you a simple visualization practice that pretty much guarantees results if you stick with it. This is a technique that we actually give our clients who are going through our 6-month transformation coaching program. Now, if you're interested in that, you can learn more below. But the technique I'm going to give you is something we give them and we help them to master throughout the program. Now, that being said, let's jump more into the power of visualization, how to use it to create the life you want for yourself, and then give you a technique again that you can use right away. You get what you think about most of the time. The power of your thoughts, your visualizations, and your feelings is typically underappreciated and not talked about nearly enough. Understand that in this video, I am going to give you a technique that will require you to sit down for a certain period of time, and that if you do that technique consistently, it will begin to work. But also, what are you thinking about? What are you visualizing throughout your day? We also need to take care of this aspect as well. So ultimately, the way in which you can start to influence reality through your visualizations that you're doing intentionally is, one, to have a deliberate practice that you're doing. Usually you want to be doing daily, having that time you give to yourself to visualize in the way we're going to give you, but to also be monitoring what you're visualizing throughout the day, because we get what we think about most of the time. And so if you were to visualize, for example, 30 minutes a day with the technique we're going to give you, you're probably going to see some movement. But if you're doing that and then the rest of the time and the rest of your day, you're thinking about what you don't want, you're visualizing the things you don't want, and you're more on a negative channel with your thoughts, your feelings, and everything else, which will also lead to actions that are equivalent to that, well, then it's not really going to matter that you spent those 30 minutes visualizing. Things might be a tad bit better, but we need to make sure, again, we're focusing on what are we thinking about most of the time. Now, when you do this deliberate exercise, it will make it easier to think better, visualize more intentionally, and feel higher conscious energy. These two practices, doing it throughout your day and having this intentional time, they work together, they synergize, and they will help you get better at each. Earl Nightingale, in his famous audio, The Strangest Secret, claimed that we get what we think about most of the time. And James Allen, in his famous book, As a Man Thinketh, states, let a man radically alter his thoughts, and he will be astonished at the rapid transformation it will effect in the material conditions of his life. It's actually coming from that book that you can see in the background, and it goes to show how powerful your thoughts are. And there's so many other books and research that's done on this topic, people in secret societies who understand this, that you get what you think about most of the time. Now, again, I want to be very clear about what we are mentioning or what we're talking about and pointing at when we say thoughts. Like mentioned earlier, we don't think in, say, words. We don't think in just this way that most people think that they do. We think in pictures. So it's really the pictures mainly that you hold in your mind consistently, what those are that are going to begin to shape your reality. So the quality of those images, therefore, will go a long way to determine whether you are living a life of joy, abundance, happiness, or one of lack, desperation, guilt, and so on. Now, there is another piece of the puzzle, because it is not thought alone that is going to allow you to shape your reality. And prominent manifestation figures like Neville Goddard talked about this all the time, and he really emphasized the idea of the feeling, and especially the feeling of the wish fulfilled. It's not just down to the images, it's the feeling that comes correspondent with those images. If you were to visualize, say, about something with almost no feeling, it's going to have almost no effect. There is no charge, there is no magnetism to those thoughts. But when you visualize, when you image, and it has a powerful charge with it, connected to it, those things begin to become magnetized into your life powerfully. Remember that emotion is simply energy in motion. And so when you have the thought and the emotion behind it, you suddenly have energy in motion working in your life. When we go to visualize, we do not only want to activate the mental plane of existence, we also want to activate the spiritual, the more emotional energy in motion plane of existence as well. And with these two working together, with the mind and heart in sync, coordinating together, with there being this synergy between the two and they're cooperating, it allows for what you are visualizing to start materializing in your life just that much more quickly. In fact, there's a famous quote from Napoleon Hill that goes, "This principle operates so fast, so powerfully, and so efficiently, it scared me." And what he was talking about from that quote, the principle, the technique that really scared him with how quickly it could change things and create transformation in your life, was visualizing from what is called the sweet spot. And again, that means the mind and heart, spirit, both being bought in and working together. And he said, when you got that, it's scary how quickly things begin to change. Now, from that first section, it should probably be clear why visualizing is so important, but I want to give you some more perspectives on just how powerful this technique truly is. When you're hitting that sweet spot, when you are thinking about it all the time, which means you're visualizing in the direction you want to be moving all the time, and also understand that as you are thinking about a certain thing all the time, there usually will come with it a charge. It's just to say that if there is no charge, there won't be power behind it. But typically, there is correspondence between thinking and feeling. They're usually in communication with each other, so if you continually think about, for example, abundance, and you are looking at the abundance in your life, and you're really focusing in on that, you will, if you keep focused there, usually develop some kind of emotional feeling of abundance as well. We just want to make sure that that is there and that we're doing things to bring that charge alongside, because it is really that feeling that brings the thing to you. Now, I want to tell you something that a mentor of mine told me about doing this inner work of visualization. And what he says is that when you are doing this work in the inner world, typically through meditation and visualization, like we're mentioning here, it really begins to move the needle 5 to 10 times faster for you than it would if you were just to try and go do physical work in the outer world. Now, why is this? It's because the outer world follows the inner world. I've gone over this in depth in other videos, so I won't here, but understand that the physical world you're seeing around you comes from the inner world, from the quantum, from the energetic realm. And so when you are activating that through your visualization, when you are thinking about the thing you want all of the time from the inner mental plane and getting that spiritual plane involved as well, things move more quickly. And so what my mentor was telling me here, that an hour's worth of visualization would equal about 5 to 10 hours of hustling and grinding in the outer world. Now, you may have also heard of this idea of the effortless path or the path of least resistance. And do you want to know how you can actually start to access that in a way that brings you results? Well, it's through doing this inner work, including the visualization technique that we're going to give you. It is one of the most powerful tools you can use for manifestation. Now, does this mean that you won't do any physical work? No, I do not want to be unclear here. I am not saying you can just sit on the sofa and meditate and visualize and have things appear in your lap. You will have to take physical action. I am not dismissing the physical. It is an incredibly important part of the process. We are just developing a hierarchy here of what comes from what. And ultimately, what you're going to find happens is as you develop the inner world, you cultivate it through things like visualization, you will be drawn and inspired and energized to take certain actions. The difference is these will be aligned actions that are made very clear to you rather than trying to do a million different things, throwing everything against the wall and seeing what sticks. That's the hustling and grinding approach. It's the shotgun or the machine gun approach, I should say, where it's just do as much as you can and we don't know which one's going to work, but just keep, rattling away and so hopefully one will stick. When you do it from the method I'm telling you here, you start lining up and the universe, God, source, whatever you want to call it, starts bringing you opportunities that are exactly in line with what you're doing in the inner world. Meaning you could make one or two actions that do much more than trying to take 100 actions where you're throwing things against the wall. And so this is what we are talking about when we say the path of least resistance. You are going into the inner world, you are co-creating, lining things up with the universe, which then starts to reveal the pathway. It'll tell you when to go left, right, go straight, so to speak. It's almost like a GPS, where if you're trying to do that without a GPS and you have no idea where you're going and you're like, I'll just go in as many directions as I can, well, you'll be lucky to get to the destination. And if you do get there eventually, you're going to be exhausted, having done 1,000 different things to get there when you could have done 4 or 5 by just following the GPS. Another thing to recognize about when stuff starts coming in is it will almost always happen in a way that you least expect. Why? Because it has to be unexpected. It's not going to be happening in a linear way, or else it's something that you try to construct from the mind. And so you will line certain things up in the inner world through your visualization, and then opportunities will start to present themselves. And if you take action on those opportunities, then things will begin to unfold. But you simply go as far as you can see now, and then more things will be revealed once you get to that place. If you try and plan beyond what you can see now and what you're being led to, you're going to get in your own way. Again, try and use the machine gun approach, and it's going to create a lot of resistance rather than less resistance. So just remember that the inner work will always move things quicker than doing random outer work, hustling, grinding, or being busy. Again, just to reiterate, that does not mean you won't take any action. You are also a physical being, and there will be action to take. But now you will be taking much more aligned and intentional action if you follow what we're going over here. Now, to quote Napoleon Hill once again, if you are one of those who believe that hard work and honesty alone will bring riches, perish the thought. It is not true. Riches, when they come in huge quantities, are never the result of hard work. Riches come, if they come at all, in response to definite demands based upon the application of definite principles and not by chance or luck. These definite demands come through your thoughts, visualizations, and feelings. The application of definite principles is in applying your ability to co-create as we are going over here. All right, so I think that's enough of a setup here. Let's jump into the technique and some ways you can even supercharge this technique to bring things in faster. So the technique I'm going to be giving you today, again, that we give our clients in our 6-month reality creation coaching program is incredibly powerful, incredibly simple, but insanely powerful if you stick with it and keep going over it. Again, it's something that throughout the whole program, we help people get better and better at, make sure they stick with and adjust here and there so that they're getting the best possible results, along with everything else they're doing in there. But I just want to say that to reiterate that this is an insanely powerful technique. Now, this is simply what's called a passive and active meditation. I'll explain, or visualization, you can call it either actually, and I'll explain what that means, how to do it, so that you can literally leave this video and do the meditation or visualization right away. So the first thing with this technique you do is what's called a passive meditation. Now, when people think about meditation, this is typically what they think about. A passive meditation, for example, might be you're focusing on a mantra or you're focusing in on your breath. You're essentially connecting to the moment, you're becoming the observer, you're not trying to go off and deliberately create or visualize or anything like that. You're trying to root yourself in the moment, allow things to be taken, allow things to come and go, and just be in the moment now. Now, with what you're going to do, as far as the technique we're going to give here, you can choose a passive form of meditation that you enjoy. If you've never done a passive meditation, there's a ton you can look up. You can, for example, focus on your breath, a mantra, whatever else it is. The point here is we are going to get yourself calm, lower your brainwave state, which is another subject altogether, but ultimately calm your body, calm your nervous system, and what we're going to be doing is opening the doorway to the inner world and walking through in this part of the process. Now, an active meditation or visualization is much more involved, as you could probably guess. This is when we are going to start intentionally visualizing. This is when we are going to be tuning in to the images and the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Now, what you're going to do is think of a scene that you want to have play out in your life in the future. Now, again, we want one that elicits strong emotions, which is the feeling you will assume while going through this process. Now, here's a really important part of this process, and so many people like to fight me on this, or others who give them this technique, especially at first, because they don't want to do this. But ultimately, if you stick with what works, it will work. And so with this scene, whatever it is, you need to make it about 10 to 20 seconds long and try not to go any longer than that. Now, the reason for this is because it will help us to stay focused and to really crystallize this scene so that it becomes more and more clear. Now, if you try and do the technique and try and do a 10-minute whole movie or whatever, you're not focusing your energy enough. You're going on way too many different tangents, and it's like trying to water some seeds in the garden with only enough water for one seed. So let's say you have 10 seeds that you're trying to grow in your life, and you only have enough energy or water to nourish one of them. It's like trying to split that one amount of nourishment, that one, enough water for one seed among 10 seeds. What happens is none of them grow. But if you focus like a laser beam on a singular scene for 10 to 20 seconds, it will become more clear, you'll be able to tune into it easier, and things will move faster. Now, a few other things here is when you visualize this scene, you want it in first person, because we want to imagine it like you are really there in this scene, living it out. Get as many of your senses involved and try to really be in that moment, in that scene, as if you were standing in this scene right now as you visualize. I like to say to my clients, one feeling that will help you know if you've really connected and really tuned in powerfully, especially from a first person point of view, is if after the visualization is over and you come back to this reality, you really believe that you weren't here and that you left. You were so immersed in this visualization, in this scene, that you actually forgot that you were sitting on your couch or you were laying on your bed or wherever you're doing it. If you have that kind of feeling, almost like a whoa, oh yeah, that's right, I was just sitting here, you know that you connected powerfully because you really believed you were in that scene. Now, what scene do you choose? Now, this is definitely something that's very important because, again, we want to have that sweet spot. And again, we want this to be something that you want to happen in your life in the future. This needs to be a celebratory scene is a good way to go about it because it elicits emotion. Just to give simple examples, let's say you want a promotion at work. The scene could be you shaking your boss's hand who's congratulating you for a job well done and is giving you the promotion in that moment. That would be an example of a celebratory scene. And so in that scene, you could make sure you have all the details. Maybe you're shaking your boss's hand or giving them a hug or whatever else it is and really feel, their hand on yours. Or in the hug, really feeling them hugging you, really feeling the emotions of what it would be like to have this scene play out. Again, something of that nature, and you can substitute whatever in there that you think is going to work for your scene, but that's just a good example of how you can elicit strong emotion and have something to really focus on. Now, after you complete this scene for 10 to 20 seconds one time through, you want to repeat it as much as you can. Again, we want to crystallize this scene. We want to make it even more vivid. See if you can make it even more clear. Hear more things in the scene. See more things in the scene more clearly. Smell them, taste them, whatever else it is. Get as involved as if you were in that scene right now in this moment. What would you be noticing? What would you be feeling, etc.? Now, don't worry if this is clunky at first. This is a skill and something you may not be amazing at if this is your first go at it. But if you do this frequently, every single day, in this manner, you will notice that this scene becomes clearer. You will notice, for example, this seed that you are continually watering through this scene, through feeling the things, is starting to grow. It's getting easier to connect to. It's getting easier to see. Just like when a seed pops through the surface, you can now see it much more clearly. And now it's getting bigger, and now it's more obvious, and now it's stronger and healthier, and there's more energy behind it. And so as you keep going and you remain consistent, this will get easier and you will connect more powerfully. Now, one thing I want to mention, because we've had this with some of my clients and just other people I've shown this technique to, is I go over why we do the passive meditation first. And the reason we do that, because a lot of people will skip this, they go right into the visualization, but it is crucial you do the passive meditation. And I'm going to give you a recommendation on how long you should do each. So do the passive and then the active and how you should set the timer and how you should go about that and everything. But it is crucial that you do the passive meditation, and here's why. You see, the passive meditation is the preparatory work before you go off and visualize. If you were just to visualize, and you've gone through your day, maybe you're stressed and maybe something's bothering you or whatever else, you're now going to try and visualize from that frequency, that energy, and that level of mind. And so when you go to visualize, you're going to find it harder to connect, especially emotionally. you're going to find it harder to focus in on the images that you want to be focusing in on. Because in a way, you're tuned into a completely different station. Let's say it's the stress station, and you're not on that creative station. You're not in that station that's going to allow you to more crystal clearly see this scene and to connect to it emotionally. And so what the passive meditation does is it calms your nervous system down. It lowers your brainwave states. It gets you prepped to then be being able to intentionally tune into this scene. So an analogy given to me by my mentor that is so brilliant at explaining this is, think of it this way. The passive meditation is, it's like you have a car, right? And the passive meditation is you prepping the car for the journey. So it's filling it up with gas, it's making sure the tires have air in them, it's checking the oil, and making sure the car is good to go so that when you hit the active meditation of actually moving towards your destination, the car doesn't break down. The car actually moves. There's gas in the gas tank. You know, the oil is fine, nothing, the tires are not going to deflate or slow your journey. And so think of it that way. The passive meditation is you putting fuel in the tank. It is you prepping the vehicle ready for this journey. And then once you've done that, now we can go into the active meditation and actually move forward and closer to bringing these things into our life. Whereas if you don't take that step, it's like you have an old beat up car that's got 2 tires flat, there's almost no gas in the tank, and you try and drive it and you don't get very far, or you might even go in the wrong direction. And so it is crucial to do this passive meditation first, which preps you to have an even more powerful visualization. So here's what I recommend you do with this technique, and it's to do it for 30 minutes daily, with 10 minutes of passive meditation and then 20 minutes of active. Now, you can increase the amount of time you do this, but just something to keep in mind that's crucial is consistency is way more important than intensity at first. Through the consistency of doing this every single day, you will build momentum, which is so crucial when it comes to manifestation. I spoke to a client recently, actually, who's going through a program where we really ironed out the details to make this work for him. And for the last 3 weeks, every single day, he's been doing this meditation, and he's blown away by the results and how amazing things have been going. Not just in, like the typical areas of your life, like relationship, finances, and everything, but just in the way he feels, his mood, the way he interacts with people. This stuff works if you actually apply it. Now, one thing you may notice is as you do this practice consistently, that you become a lot more aware of your thoughts and the way you feel. And that's exactly where we want to be, because remember, we get what we think about most of the time. And so it's great doing this practice for 30 minutes, and you can work your way up to an hour. You can do 1 in the morning, 1 at night. That will really supercharge it. So do 30 minutes when you wake up and 30 minutes before you go to bed, or even an hour if you really want things to move quickly. But as you're doing that, you'll also notice that your thoughts are getting more clear. You're giving yourself more space to choose what you want to think about. And my invitation is to absolutely be more conscious throughout the day with what you're thinking about and visualizing. And so another tool that can be really useful to really supercharge this is to do mini ones throughout the day when you feel your energy dropping, or you feel like your thoughts are going in a direction you don't want them to go. And so what you can simply do, for example, let's say you do your morning one, and then 2 or 3 hours later, you're kind of feeling your energy go down, or you're thinking in a way you don't really want to be thinking. You could do a 1-minute passive meditation followed by a 4-minute active meditation. And the thing is, as you keep doing this, you're going to get really good at being able to tune in pretty quickly into your visualization and passive meditation and really tune into that energy and allow it to influence you. And so throughout the day, even if you have to do this 4 or 5 times throughout the day or more, if you use this little kind of boost, this supercharge of this technique, it's going to allow things to move faster, and it's going to prevent you from thinking in a direction you don't want to be thinking, which again, is what you're going to get more of if you keep going in that direction. Think of this technique of doing it throughout the day, of reconnecting to your power source, of getting a top up of energy and continuing to move in the direction you want to go. Let's say you were veering a little off course, and doing this allows you to course correct and get back on track. Now, we can actually go even deeper into this idea of your thoughts and the influence that that plays. And so I'd go watch this video next if you want to learn even more about the power of your words and thoughts and the influence they have in your life, and some other things that are going to help you with what you learned today. It's a great follow-up to these videos, and they synergize very well. So if you want to keep the journey going, go check that out.